Hey, what's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in today's video. Now, I will mention it's gonna be a little more talkative and a little bit maybe longer, optionally, so settle down, enjoy, do whatever it is you do, and you can listen in while you're working or doing anything else. Like me, washing the dishes, walking the dog. So I want to talk a bit about mental health, and especially for artists. So I browsed Twitter, as I don't often do, and then I encountered this tweet by David A. Parfit, which, if you remember, we actually featured his work on Painting Masters, okay? And this is what he said. From a work perspective, the past few months have been a real struggle, and my motivation to create anything continues to be almost non-existent. But I fight on. This morning, thinking about snow and walking through the woods with my granddad. And then he shared this fantastic watercolor that looks amazing. Now, on a bit of a different note, I watched a video by a content creator called Arlo, who does a lot of video games, especially Nintendo Switch and Nintendo, like Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, stuff like that, and all of the other IPs on the Switch. And he talked about a lot of things and health issues, a lot of interesting things there that he's been experiencing, and I've been feeling that he had these issues for a long time now, at least a year or so. And there was a bit of, again, health issues, but the gist of it was, as a content creator, I felt like he's really overwhelmed by both the amount of work that he can do and should do, and then a sense of self-judgment when he's not able to do everything that he wants. And it's like putting yourself in this kind of a trap where you're doing something amazing for a living, which is creating content, sharing it with people, working your own terms. But then with that, there's a great sense of responsibility of having to interact with a lot of people, answer emails, be present in social media, create the type of content that people enjoy. There's a lot of baggage that you can decide to pile on, or you can decide not to pile on yourself. And sometimes that decision, it happens unconsciously, and then you didn't really decide, and it just happens, and it's super overwhelming. And if you created content, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I want to talk a bit about mental health, and this is the beginning of 2022, so I do want to wish you an amazing 2022, and I think it's a good time to address this, because if someone like David, who's an amazing, skillful, experienced watercolor painter, experiences this really affects everyone. And if there's anything you take from this video, is I want you to really viscerally understand that I go through these same things. So if you feel like that, if you feel a lack of motivation, complete lack of, like, sometimes it happens, I'll wake up in my bed and I'm like, I don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like doing the work, And I wouldn't call this depression. I don't think it's that deep and that frequent, but I do have times where it's much more prevalent. So it's important, I think, to understand that this is very common. So first off, you're not alone if you feel these things. Second, it is manageable, and if you find your own triggers, you can get through it and actually get to a point where you create and you do a lot of things and you feel good about your art and yourself. So let's break this down a bit. I want to share with you some of my struggles, and I wrote it down because I know I won't remember exactly how I phrased it, because when I had this idea, I had a genius way of thinking about it. So a lot of it, for me, so I wrote down something like productivity versus busy work versus satisfaction. So let me take you back to when I started a business. When I just got started 8 years ago, not that long, but actually a long time ago, what I would do is sit down and write. I would write the how-to books. And of course, I'd practice drawing and sketching, but I would spend a lot of time writing. It was a project. I'd sit down and write. Social media wasn't a big thing for me back then. I wouldn't do anything, almost anything. And then I started discovering it, right? I believe it was YouTube and Facebook first, actually. So YouTube, it clicked. I can do these videos, At first, I had a blog where I posted tutorials, right? That was the only thing I did. Then I discovered YouTube and Facebook, and then Instagram. Maybe a year later, I started posting there. And now it's TikTok, and it's the podcasts, and things grow and grow and grow. And all of these things take time. So you have to understand, I really want to convey this to you. I spend a lot of time editing videos. Editing takes time. I feel like I'm the only person who can edit my own videos, which is maybe untrue. Maybe it'll change in the future, but for now I haven't found the affordable option of bringing someone else to do it. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, And even when I'm so experienced at it, like process videos, I can edit rather fast. But when there's more editing involved, when I want to show some B-roll, for example, for the course I'm working on for you right now, there's a lot of editing involved. I want it to be top-notch, I want it to be entertaining, and I wanted also to include a lot of footage of interesting things while I talk, right? So I spend a lot of time doing that, right? And when I create a video for Instagram, right, that looks fast, but it's maybe 30 minutes to create a video, maybe more, maybe 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and it compounds because I like to post a lot and I like to share a lot. But all of these things compound, and what do they take away from? They take away from just pure creativity time, pure sitting down, drawing and painting. And what usually happens to me is I have all of these tasks I'm going through and are very important for me to go through, and I find that by the time 5:30 p.m. hits, 6 p.m. hits, I didn't even paint yet, I didn't even create yet. And that can happen for a couple of days, a week and a half. Then I'm like, I have to breathe, you know? And when I got started and I worked in projects, I would have a great time just writing 5 hours. When you write 5 hours, you feel super productive. Then you still have like 3 hours to work, right? 3, 4, maybe 5. Of course, I worked more than that, but you know, if you're looking at a normal work day, maybe you work 8 hours, maybe you work 10 hours. I'd go 16, I'd go 12, I go 14, based on the mood, right? And now, and of course, there's more responsibilities in life, but in addition to that, it's all of these things that take away from that creation. To me, I just find that after a couple of days, I'm going crazy. I have to create. And so my challenge for the next 2 years would be how to do that. Now, I recently discovered a fear that I have, which prevented me from letting go a bit of content creation. So here's the thing I wanna stress. Social media has been an incredible opportunity, and I think I owe to it a lot of what I am able to do right now. So the fact, sorry, I'm gonna move the camera a bit. I think it'll be better like this. The fact that I don't know. The fact that I can make a living from what I'm doing is a big part of it is thanks to social media. Doing the videos, doing the posts, doing the gathering an audience, having you purchase my courses, that's the income. That's how I make a living. I don't have a full-time job, that's my full-time job, right? And if I calculate how much I make per hour, it's really low, because that's how it is when you have a business. You, especially if you're just a one-person business, you work for everyone and you carry all the expenses. That's just how it works. But the point is, social media has been a great opportunity. And so I really jumped on it and went full force on it. But what I'm experiencing right now, and what I see a lot of content creators experiencing right now, is not burnout, because burnout is like, I'm sick of it, I can't, maybe, you know, I don't define it as a burnout. Burnout could mean to me, I don't get the feedback I want on social media and I feel frustrated and I just kind of leave it. To me, it's not burnout, it's taking a lot of time from other things. And you can really go down a rabbit hole. And the balancing act between the two is important, really, really important. So what I find is that I slowly and gradually, okay, so I'll talk to you about a fear. So I found this fear that I'm really scared that if I let go and maybe put less focus on content, which means on everywhere, YouTube, Instagram, everything. If I shift my focus from content to something else, it will hurt the income, right? And that's a thing I have to think about because it's my livelihood. And that fear prevented me for a long time, and still is, to really let go of that. And here's the thing. When I got started on social media, it was a fresh start, you know, a clean slate. The sharing came from a sense of wanting to share something, right? And whenever I paint something that I put a lot of effort and heart into, the sharing comes from a place of I have to share this with everyone, right? And it gets good responses because it really is something I'm proud of and I worked really hard on. And these days, a lot of the sharing comes from this sense of responsibility. And not a responsibility in like, you know, I share something that's fake or something and I have to share, but it's a sense of that's the business, that's what I'm doing. I'm sharing my creation, right? So I'll create a lot for the purpose of that, right? Because if I work on a painting 5 days it takes a lot of time for me being able to do other things, right? And then it means that for 5 days, what I'm gonna post is just photos of the process, right? But on the other hand, it really does feel different whenever I'm able to carve out the proper time to work really hard on something and then share it. It feels really good, here's another thing to throw at you, when I'm able to sit down and practice. It's been a while since I practiced anatomy properly. By the way, you like the curl? I'm looking at it. I'm seeing myself here on the screen. I'm looking at it the whole video, and I'm like, should I? Nah, I'm just gonna keep it like that. The practicing, something that is so important to preserving and improving your skills, right? Me spending more time on longer paintings really improves my skills, but I find that I don't have a lot of time to do that. So I've been toying around with the idea, and this is, by the way, the way I defined it. So productivity versus busy work versus satisfaction. So what ends up happening is I spend a lot of time working on content, creating videos, creating stuff like that. It's a lot of busy work, but am I being productive if I haven't even created something proper? You know what I mean? That's up for debate, right? If you just enjoy the sharing part, you don't really care about the creation, it's kind of a means to share something interesting, that's a completely different story. But I do feel like I want that time, right? And so what ends up happening is I'm not as satisfied from what I did that day. And being satisfied with my work is, going back to what I think we talked about earlier, the type of people who have to do what fills their soul. That's me, and I need that satisfaction. And if I don't get it for a few days, it feels wrong. It really does. So I've been toying around with the idea of thinking, okay, so I have this fear that if I let go a bit, you know, of sharing in social media and thinking in terms of content, it will significantly hurt my income, which is a worry. That's something I need to be aware of, right? So then I thought, okay, but how, when I got started, I was making money. I started making money not by creating content directly, right? And a lot of people do. A lot of businesses don't run on creating content. Of course, if you're an individual, if you teach, you have to post content, and that's what I love. I love that I can do that. I can do that independently. That's incredible. I don't need to go to an institute, teach through them, get paid by them. They take a cut. I need to handle administration and all sorts of, you know, everything that big organizations get you to extra worries, right? The trade-off is you have your freedom in terms of you're not carrying any of the risk of the organization failing. But when you're independent, it's a bit different. So I've been thinking about it a lot, and I started mapping out the kinds of things I can do to ensure future income and make it even grow bigger in the future, with kind of letting go of that incessant need to share and post. And I came to some really interesting realizations. I've been really thinking about it because when I spend a lot of time creating and really devoting a lot of effort to an individual project, painting, sketch, whatever it is, when I share that result, it actually brings more value to you. That's what I feel. When I share a process, right, work in progress, because it's a long project, it actually does provide a lot of value because you get to see a creation that is of a higher caliber. So should I force myself to share smaller, quicker paintings just because they're easy to film for a YouTube tutorial? Or what would happen if I shift my focus completely? It's kind of a thought experiment I'm doing. Shift my focus completely to creation and not set any goal of social media at all. What will happen then? Not a post a week, not a story, I don't have to do anything, just have to create. So for example, I'll schedule a time, 4 hours I'm just gonna work on a painting. And then 4 hours I'm gonna work on anatomy. What I find that happened in the future when I did that was suddenly I got the feeling, the urge to share because something was clicking, it looked really good. And then I shared it naturally. And then it actually provided you a lot of value because it's something that came from a very immersive process, a very in the moment, something unique that taps into, if you want to, bump the camera. If you want to look at it spiritually, you can call this creative force like tapping into some truth in the universe, right? And the more you can align yourself with it, the greater the things you're going to produce. If you look at Akiana Krameric, I think her name is, she did that famous Jesus painting when she was, I don't know, like 5 or something. She really I really see the reasons she succeeded. A lot of people looked at it as a gimmick. She was a very young artist, and by the way, I need to write a note to include all of these things, Akiana and David's tweet, and otherwise I'll forget, and Arlo. A lot of people looked at it as a gimmick of like a really young artist and it's a news story and stuff like that, but I really think she was able to tap into something very real, so that when you look at her art, it comes through, right? And I can look at my paintings and see where I was able to hit that, something that's very real. Let me get something, because this is a long video, you know, my 100 cars project, there is this car that I cannot shake off the feeling that I tapped into something that's more real than the rest, and it's this one. Just, I would never have remembered to put this afterwards when editing. So this thing here, and maybe now I'll remember to put a higher quality scan, but this thing has something unique in it, completely unique. I don't know what it is, I was in it. When I'm able to create these kinds of things, when I'm able to create like the gas can, like the whatever it is, the posts get a lot more attention, the conversation is better, and I feel like responding to every comment because it's something big, it's an event, right? So my question to myself right now is, how can I find that, kind of focus my lens in a way that will get me there? So I hope all of this makes sense. I know a lot of it is abstract, but to move away from having a content schedule, which I loved for the longest time, for like a year and a half, I had a content schedule, I was super organized. To move away from that, and the trade-off is much more immersive creation. And then, again, not mentally, not in a list, any social media related goals. That actually may include YouTube too. It's the one thing I'm a little scared to take a few steps back from, but it is possible. Not set any of these, and create as more of a spur of the moment thing. So let me give you an example. If I painted something huge that I'm very proud of, right? Something that I love and I'm passionate about, I would just love to do a video showing it, right? Showing the final result. And if I have a process, I do, and if I don't, so be it. But that would be a different way of creating, and that's gonna be shifting the focus to documenting. So I'm not gonna set, for example, any goals, again, for creating, and then I'm just gonna let the chips fall where they may, right? So I've been toying around with that idea, and then I thought, okay, so, but what if my income, my sales go down, right? So one of the things I've been thinking about is there's a lot of things I used to do when I got started and I don't do as much now. And let me give you an example. I'm gonna give you a few examples, right? First off, if I shift my focus to creation, historically speaking, from my own experience, I am much more available to respond to every single comment I get, every single message I get. And you'd be surprised, when I spend a session of an hour responding to messages, it will always lead to a sale, or to always. I don't know why. It's not like I push the product or anything like that. Someone asks a question. One of the questions is going to be, hey, I don't know how to get to your course. And then it's a link and someone purchases it immediately. Another question is someone asking about a painting, and then I tell them about it. I direct them to a video. They check out the video, and then they're like, how can I find more? And then I send the course, and it's just a purchase, right? Or they tell me later they bought it. They looked for more. They saw it in a link in the video. So talking to people always has a positive ROI in my experience. So that's one thing that already counterbalances my worry, that the income will be hurt. So one thing, we're gonna put it in the corner. Another thing is there's a lot of biz dev actions that I can take. For example, one of the best time for money value of things I did was publishing the books in foreign languages, because that's just, they do all the work. It's all about sending emails. Hey, I have this book. It sells really well. I want to publish it. I'm looking at publishing houses. Maybe you'd like to publish it, right? And I can show sales data because my books sell a lot on Amazon. So that's one thing that I already have, one published in Russian, one published in Spanish, and I just get a paycheck every year. And it's not a huge paycheck, but it is completely passive. They do everything. They translate the book. They do everything, right? I don't have to do anything. So that's huge. Why not do more of that, right? That's one thing. And I wrote down a bunch of stuff, actually. I don't know if I'll be able to find the list. I think I have a scan of it somewhere, but let's see if there's anything else interesting, because this is already a long-form video, and if you're listening by this point, then yeah, and if you are listening by this point, let me know do a hashtag still listening. Put still listening, one word, and I'll know that you're still here. But yeah, one more thing I'll throw at you while I look for this, because it really is interesting, is replacing one of the videos for a live stream. So a live stream takes an hour and a half, 2 hours from beginning to end, nothing else, right? You have to schedule it, of course, but that's really fast, actually. I don't need to edit anything. And you get the more direct interaction, right? So that's something I'm definitely considering. Doing more of these will inevitably lead to, here I found it, will inevitably lead to more interaction, right? So the live streams are a great solution for that. So let's see what I wrote down here. Oh, okay, yeah. So to work on my 100 cars book, if I just sit down and finish those cars faster, then I can work faster at either publishing it myself or actually approaching a publishing house and having them publish it. Working on the manga, which has been a side project, why not make it a main project? Have me sit down and create like 4 pages a week or 3 pages a week, as much as I can, and then instead of spending time sharing tons of content, I can use that time to only share when I feel like I created something significant, right? And reach out to tons of publishing houses and find one that would publish it as a graphic novel, right? That's another idea. Working on classes for Skillshare, which is something I said I do for a long time, and everyone says I should do it, right? Creating a proper watercolor book, which is something I still don't have. There's no watercolor book. You know, the 100 card challenge is going to be, of course, a picture book, but an instruction book on what. Spend more time creating products and only share. Don't have the structure of the business include social media. I know it's crazy. It's really the opposite. And I do want to take a few steps back and say, social media, as I mentioned, has been an incredible opportunity, right? So it's very hard to resist in a way. But we got to take care of the artistic side. We have to spend, because again, there's the opportunity cost, right? So anything you do instead of something else, there's the lost opportunity of that something else. Now, what do I lose if I spend more time on editing and creating content and all of that? I lose the time I could spend actually communicating individually. I lose the time I could work on my skills, which is the most important part. So who knows how good I can be in a couple of years if I make that shift compared to where I'm at right now. There's the satisfaction from work, right? There's all of these things that you don't even know that you're missing, right? So let's get practical. I don't know exactly how this will happen. I don't really know what the practical change would be. For starters, I'll probably shift my focus from content to creation. So a bit less, that's the content schedule, that's what I need to create, gonna schedule things in a little less of that, and a bit more of just immersion in the creation process. What can you expect? I think better results, more interesting paintings, right? More interesting content, better insights, more skilled insights, a lot of these things, right? It may translate, I don't know what the practicality is going to be. Instead of 5 posts a week, it's going to be 1. I have no idea, right? Probably, maybe in the near future, I'll replace one of the videos with a live stream. It's probably going to be Tuesdays, because Saturday I'm not going to stream probably. I just enjoy chilling after the long week. So maybe Tuesday and Thursday are both going to be live streams. Maybe that'll happen once every other week, right? And the other week is going to be a video, right? Maybe the videos will turn into more sharing what I created because I spent more time on it and I think the result is more interesting. I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like. All I know is that I'm trying to be very in tune with what I need as a person and as an artist, because that's the thing that's going to make it sustainable, right? And I want to be able to not only do this for a long time, but do it in a way that brings out the most artistic value out of me, and then I can share that with you, you know? I don't want to feel like I'm sharing because I have to. Now, I will give a side note, of course. A lot of what I share comes from a place of really wanting to share, right? The format in which I do it, I don't think is as beneficial for me anymore. So, again, some changes. Another aside, I've actually been devoting a lot of time on TikTok because I wanted to do an experiment. So I changed my content completely. I followed a few guidelines I've been looking at, and it works. It works. My account grows really fast now, and I get a lot of views. So it's interesting, and it's in Hebrew. So that's an experiment. I don't know how long it's going to last, but for now it's interesting, right? And the audience there loves manga, so maybe that'll kind of help with publishing the manga, finding audience for it, you know, all of that. So that's where I'm at. Now let's do a zoom out as we conclude this one. I started by talking about David A. Parfit's tweet, which was really a breath of fresh air. A highly experienced, skillful artist talking openly about having no motivation. Not like I've been having some hard time with, no, he's like, I have zero motivation. That's incredible to read in a good way, right? Now, there's other content creators like Arlo, which I talked about, that have this thing as well of feeling like, I think, not being in tune enough with their own needs and feeling that crushing sense of responsibility without anything to balance it out, like, I don't know, fun time, letting go, all of that, which I'm actually pretty good at doing, usually. And then there's me. Then that's my own thing, right? Everyone experiences this at some point. If you're an individual whose work matters to, and I don't say that to degrade anyone who works, like, I'm gonna give you a great example. My mom has an approach to work that is super healthy. She's like, you go there, you do the thing you do, and you come back and you collect a paycheck. And she's an independent, right? She's a lawyer, and her customers love her. She's really good at what she does. And she has the most laid back approach. It's like, so I didn't get to do exactly what I wanted, the type of contract, the type of work. I just finished the work and it's all good, right? That kind of a happy-go-lucky approach in a way. For me, it's a little different, and I do recognize a lot of people for whom it's very different. It's like, if I don't do the thing I want to do, I just won't be satisfied. And if I go over 5 days of not doing what I need to do, it's gonna be a nightmare, right? I'm gonna get cranky, I'm gonna feel sad, I won't be able to leave bed. So, if you're feeling any of these things, just know that you're definitely not alone. It's definitely doable. I still get up every day and I do, and I find a balance, and after a few days of frustration I bring it back and I find my own balance, and I'm doing a decent job at it. Not a perfect job, not a good job even, but a decent job, because I am able to keep going, right? But I'm looking always long term, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, how can I be more in tune, right, for the next 2 years or so? How can I increase the income and grow the business while also redirecting my focus to where it needs to be, right? So this is doable. If you're feeling down, if you have lack of motivation, it's something I deal with, it's something many creators deal with, and it's something that you're able to accept, right? It's something that you just have to accept at some point. That's just how I feel today, I'm gonna be fine. Sometimes that sense of self-judgment is worse than the actual lack of motivation, because it can lead to a loop where you judge yourself, you don't create, you judge yourself more, you don't create. Whereas if you just don't feel motivated, stop for a day, don't judge that, the next day you wake up fresh, right? So just a few things to throw at you as we're beginning 2022. You know, everyone talks about New Year resolutions and plans, and I talk about it a lot, but maybe you're not as motivated. Maybe you have some issues you're working through. You know, everyone does, right? So just know that I'm here for you. Leave a comment and let me know, actually, if you've been watching this long. I'm definitely curious to hear your comments. Do you have a similar thing? Do you have a similar struggle where you see people are like running into 2022 and you're like, well, I don't have any idea, like I don't feel it, or I know I need a change, right? I'm actually curious to hear that, so let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. I think it will help it a lot reach more people, and I think a lot of people need to hear this. Even the most skilled people in their own fields go through this, right? Everyone does. So I would like this to get to as many people who need to hear it as possible. And if you have gotten to this point in the video, I do want to thank you a lot, because it means a lot to me to know that you've listened all the way through, and I know that my words get to someone. I want to tell you I appreciate you for enabling me to do what I'm doing, allowing me to make a living from my art, and allowing me that buffer of really finding and working through finding my direction. Because it's not like I've had this couple of decades of career and then social media hit and I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm still finding my direction, right? And I want a direction that's beneficial most for me and you. So thank you so much for being here along this journey with me. And I will see you in the next video. Take care. Have an amazing 2022. We'll talk again soon.